1, 2, 1, 2. So here we are. It's 4 p.m. Friday the 13th. And I'm just waiting for Daniele to start his Twitter space. And I'm going to join. He's not there yet. And we might make an announcement.
Going to first retweet this so people can join. It's good to be back doing this. See already good guest here. Hi. Oh, there you go. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Daniele. How are you?
Not too bad for a Friday. How are you?
Friday the 13th. Don't forget. This could all go terribly wrong.
Look, you're talking to Twitter, so I think we're primed for risk.
Exactly. What could possibly go wrong?
Yes. Let's give everybody else one more minute. It's good to be back. I was telling everybody, and we're just wanting to start having this friends and family kind of element to space to just like look back and celebrate what we've done with spaces and the API and the kind of innovation we've seen. Maybe this goes okay, but this goes in a way that can help us learn what to do next and how to do it better. So
amazing.
Yes, first thing I want to say is, well, thank you for joining. It's been a while, but I'm Daniele, him, head of developer advocacy here at Twitter, and you might remember me for my former run as the developer advocate and sometimes product manager for the Spaces API. That was last summer, and even though we did that last summer, Spaces obviously started months before that. And with that, we saw an ecosystem of creators and listeners that wanted to get into live audio. And so I wanted to just look back first and then celebrate the accomplishments that not just creators did, but the rest of the community and developers also brought to the platform and to themselves for creation. And so, Andrew, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everyone. My name's Andrew Lyons. I am the founder of Spaces Dashboard, which is attempting to become the discovery guide for all of the amazing audio conversations taking place on Twitter.
Hi. And I mentioned there was a special guest and a surprise, and you are both, aren't you?
That's the plan, and it's nice to hear. Yes, we
So
won't spoil everything, but we do have an announcement to make, which it only felt fitting to do it in a space with yourself because you started the whole journey for me. You started the whole journey for many of us working with the API. And I think you've really shown how building and developing in public adds so much value to both parties, the Twitter team and the community. So thank you for that.
uh, well, I'm extremely bad at taking compliments, so or like positive feedback. So I acknowledge that, and I think this is it takes two to tango. And this is like the platform and developers really, and people like you, and that's this already feels good for a Friday, but let's look back at what happened in order to what happened and what needed to happen so that people like you could thrive and really do something good on the platform, something useful and valuable. So when it all started, um, we were in a way competing for attention, and there was already an incumbent out there, and live audio was almost like the equivalent of going to going to Mars, going to the moon. Like we knew there was something there. We didn't know exactly what, and it was something that catalyzed the attention of everybody. It was like creating a new medium in a way. Um, sure, it's similar to the radio. Sure, it's similar to the podcast, but it's not anything like that. It's in the moment, it's live, and it's public, and it's a conversation that's worldwide. There's no radio that can do that, really. There's no podcast that can do that in the moment as things happen. Um, there's definitely no better way to understand who's the authority on something and gather a community and followers on that. And that place was unique, and it's still unique, and it's called Twitter Spaces. And everybody wanted to not just listen but create. And what's best is that everybody wanted to improve and have their own ideas on a product that's new, that moves fast, and is clearly adding something to the creator economy. And so that was our idea. We have a history as Twitter as building with developers um, together, and we saw already there was already a ton of interest from other platforms and other developers to integrate. Um, I remember some developers leveraged the private API of Clubhouse. Clubhouse never had a developer platform or public API, yet people wanted to add services or functionality to that. And we have a public API, and we have a history of great things that happen to developers who get to work with us. Like I always repeat this, our first iOS app ever wasn't ours. It was a developer that built with the Twitter API. Our tweet search service, the image upload service, like two different companies. Um, Pretty much all of the acquisitions we've done. Twitter Blue is basically all acquisitions. The reader mode was an app called Threader we acquired. Top Articles was an app we acquired called Nuzzle. So these things happen, and these things keep happening. This is the dynamic that makes Twitter the way it is, because it's built with developers who can complement our roadmap. We're a small company with a very long roadmap, and we'll never get to the end of it. We have ideas. We've validated those ideas through research, and we just shared them with developers. The problem is, what happens if developers can't have access to the public API because the functionality is not there yet? And that's what prompted us to build the Spaces API. So we created the Spaces API because we knew that developers were at the intersection of creators and their own creativity, and could bring um, big realms of innovation ways we could never even conceive, which is the great part about working here. Um, this is the best grassroots community of developers I've ever witnessed in my career. And little did I know that when I went to start working on the Spaces API, I could find this degree of innovation. I started with literally nothing. Nobody else has tried um, to build an API for live audio ever. So we didn't know what would look like. Why should developers even care? Or what were the main needs? And it's like developers like you. I want to also mention um, Janika. Um, Hopefully, she'll find the space um, and join us. Brought the understanding. And then we got creators and listeners to really interact together, intersect, and work uh, with us and build something. And I'll stop here because before we even get to the the big announcements, I wanted to understand from you, Andrew, what was your experience joining those spaces and those conversations? Like, what were your expectations? What were you trying to do, and what was the vision you feel you contributed to the API?
Well, I have to say, first of all, I fell in love with social audio and Twitter once Twitter Spaces came out. Um, I it I think where we were in the world, it provided so much needed way for us all to listen and be part and talk to people in a completely new way that none of us had experienced before. First Clubhouse and then Twitter. And of course, you kind of have to choose where you go. And when I realized that Twitter were moving into the social audio space and you already had the existing audiences, I could totally see where this was heading. And I felt very encouraged by the way you laid it out very early on, that you're here to help us. You want us all to succeed. So every space and you were very clever, because what you did was you started letting us know what was happening so that we could then understand what was coming and start thinking about and asking questions early on. And then you took feedback from
With Janika, yep.
Janika, yes, in regards to her ideas, and you implemented those quickly. When I saw that, I thought, wow, this is quite unusual. Not only are you holding these open forums, you're taking feedback and you're changing things very, very quickly. So then when the API came up and we were able to apply for it, I actually pulled out the snippet of content that I wrote when I applied for it. And it's quite interesting when I read back on it. It won't take long. I wrote the core use case and intent for the Spaces dashboard is to solve the problem that currently exists in finding and discovering Twitter Spaces to join and be a part of. At the moment, the Discovery tab is being tested and no doubt will improve over time. If a user knows about the search query, filter, :spaces, they can see the latest river of spaces in Twitter, but that doesn't make life any easier. It simply shows everything. On the desktop, you can't benefit from the fleets appearing to visually trigger your interests. So at the moment, it's simply too hard to find spaces to join for the average Twitter user. We want to change this and create a new way for users to search for, discover, and find spaces they will find interesting. And suddenly that brings up so many different things. Suddenly we realized the tab is new. We're all used to it now. We realized fleets were there, and they were the way that we started to discover spaces. And when I read that back, it takes you right back to how far we've come.
Thank you for sharing that. I wasn't aware of, I think this is the first time I heard that. Well, obviously we talked about that during the spaces, but you see what happened here. There's a lot to really process here, because like I said before, nobody's ever tried to build a public API for spaces. When we build a public API as a product manager, you had to understand the first thing you have to understand, and it's the first thing we have on our product requirements document, is a section that says, what is the customer problem? What are you trying to solve? you know, and we we struggle to understand why developers should care about that. And people like you came in with exactly this understanding. At the time, we were thinking that we needed to do a lot of things. Maybe there were notifications API for Spaces. Maybe there was a possibility to look into a streaming and recording endpoint. Maybe there was the opportunity to give uh, creators the ability to mute and unmute people through the API. We knew that those were functionalities, but we didn't know what the value was to developers and what developers would prioritize, what was more important to them. And so we jumped on the space with people and we talked about Spaces. And we told them, I know there's some developers uh, among the audience. Please come and tell us what would be valuable to you. What would you prioritize between this and this, and why? What are your goals? And what would you believe your goals are fulfilled or achieved if you did this instead of that? And that's where people like you, Andrew, with very clear ideas, both as users of Spaces, developers, and with the right vision as well, helped us understand what to build first and what to prioritize. And one of the things we ended up putting in the product requirements document is that discovery is a problem because the Explore tab surely is there, surely will improve. But even when it does improve, it will show Twitter's perspective, Twitter's algorithm. And this was summer 2021, I suppose. What if we open source the algorithm for Spaces so that everybody could explore what matters the most to them, or offers different ways to discover content? And that's where you came in with Spaces dashboard.
Yes, and our North Star hasn't changed, and it's always been discovery. That's our goal. We want to become the discovery guide for Twitter Spaces. And we haven't changed direction at all with that. We still obviously haven't got to exactly where we need to go to, because, as I've shared with you many times, we believe that Twitter Spaces and your own personal page on Spaces dashboard will be just like your own YouTube channel. It will be something that you will share. It will be something that you'll be proud of. It will be something that shows to the world this is what you're about. It will be something that shows to employees and to brands that they can communicate and work with you to reach a specific audience. And that really hasn't changed. What has changed and continues to change is every time we develop something, or every time we ask the team for something, it's been a constant change of innovation, because you're always adding new things into the API. And of course, when you're developing an interface to go on top of that, that also then changes the way you look at things. And knowing that new things will be added, and you have to think about those when you're going through the design challenges and UX design that you're putting together. And that's been really fascinating and continues to be, because I know we've had a number of calls with the team, and we still have a long list of things that we've asked for. But more importantly, we've got a long list of things that you've added that we don't need to ask for anymore. And it's been so exciting, and still continues to be, because I can really see where the future of this is going. I may be completely wrong, but I'm betting my house, and more importantly, my time and my energy into it. I'm not really betting my house. I mean, I'm putting all of my chips on the table to say Twitter Spaces is a game changer. I want to play in that ecosystem. I want to work with the API team in a way I've never, ever worked with a company before. I think you really are leading the way in showing how you can work with developers. You do listen, you take on board everything we've done. And you were very clear very early on when I asked for things. You said, as long as you can show us the business and the user case and explain how we can do it and why you need it, will look at it and take it seriously. And that for me has been a big fundamental change, because it's not just me. I'm just somebody who joined that space when you set it up. You've made it open for everybody, and the stuff that you've done with the playground and allowing everybody to get access to the API, fascinating, groundbreaking for me, I think.
That's thank you. I feel we definitely need to recognize the entire Spaces API team as well, who helped us um, in the background. Sometimes they showed up. Anwesha, Kendall, Sam were really working very hardly. I want to recognize Adam, also was the lead PM on that, and gave me the opportunity to just take over. Really, I was panicking because I had never managed anything before. So a huge shout outs to them and to what they believed in, which is that the complete direction. I would never have achieved anything like that if it wasn't for their being wild and just like being willing to try something new, and it worked extremely well. And you see that because of that, all that support and all we did and our persistence, um, we started to do that this year as well through Twitter Dev, when we started to explore new potential new pathways for customization, like cards, or giving people the ability to customize their timelines. Um, this is exactly the same. Like it's the interaction between developers and people that really um, led the way. So we are just the proxy to the feedback and input, and the things you need. On that note, Andrew, how did it go? Like when you got access to the Space API, and then you built something, and then what is that something?
So yeah, we that first weekend, I remember getting it, and me and the team were like so excited, and suddenly we very quickly we had something that we were able to demonstrate and show. And essentially what we do on Spaces Dashboard is the first thing we offer is the ability for you to look at all of the live leaderboards globally, and we rank them based on which Twitter Spaces are currently running with the most participants. And just ranking those is a very interesting way for you to discover the topics and conversations and hosts that are currently holding great conversations on Twitter. And then, of course, we were able to start ranking those based on time as well. So you may just want to see what's popped up now in the next 5 minutes. It might spark an interest. You may see something, a discovery that you want to go and listen to. And these leaderboards became quite interesting because suddenly we were also then looking at how we could start to showcase the upcoming content. And because again, Twitter is such a global product, we were then also able to take the language tags within the API and then start to break out the leaderboards for different languages. And then, of course, we're able to save that data and start to build up our own database of content. And then we started looking at the upcoming stuff, and exactly the same way we could create live upcoming leaderboards of things that were starting soon. And then you could rank those based on who has the most followers on Twitter. So you could start to see some of the big accounts. And what that started to enable us to do is then to spot some trends that were popping up, where we'd see people who were starting their first spaces. We could see the big brands coming through. And then you launch something called ticketed spaces. And again, because you added it into the API, we were also able to identify that and add those into the leaderboards. And I remember very early on you saying that, internally you were, instead of going through the API, you were just going onto the dashboard to find all of the latest ticketed spaces. And you may not know this, but that actually meant quite a lot, because that showed us that, if internally the team, someone at Twitter's using this and what we're doing, we are definitely onto the right track. And we took your guidance as well in regards to us getting some early beta testers, which we've had for quite a while, and we've taken all of their feedback. And again, because I eat my own dog food, I'm a host as well. I try to identify how I could help all of the hosts and what they could do and pick out some of the key things. So search was one big thing. So on the dashboard, you can also search in regards to emojis, usernames, tags. But then we wanted to make sure we could allow you to, if there wasn't a Twitter space at the moment that was around, you could set up an alert and then save those alerts, and then we'd email you when a space did pop up in the future. We wanted the ability for you to add your own spaces. You know, if you are going to put something impromptu, you want to make sure that we are tracking it. Again, all these tiny little things that suddenly start to build up to the point where we then wanted to find a way to change how you discovered the spaces. So the other big thing we have on the dashboard, which works really, really well, and we get so much feedback, is that you can pop in on a Monday for the week and you can look at all of the upcoming spaces that are going to be popping up in the next 14 days based around your own interests. And because we're all so busy, you then can have the ability to add it to your own calendars. And then you could say, actually, I'd like these to be emailed to me 15 minutes before the space starts, or 30 minutes, you decide. Or you may want a desktop notification. And suddenly you can fill up your whole calendar with these social audio conversations all in one place. And I use that feature so much. It's absolutely changed my life. It's so much easier to do. But it doesn't stop there. And we've been in closed beta for quite a while now. And I can say that now when you go to spacesdashboard.com, that it's available for everybody. We've opened it up today, now, this moment. And we wanted to do it with you, Daniele, because you were here when we started it. And you know...
Wait, are you launching it right now? It's a surprise.
It's live now. Yep.
Oh.
So everybody and anybody can now share Spaces Dashboard. Experience it.
It's amazing.
And of course, you know that this is very much V1 of the dashboard. And we keep saying this, we've been saying this from the very early days, is that we haven't applied any design to the Spacious Dashboard as it stands now.
So, first of all, this is an honor. This is amazing. And as a person, this makes like my year as a person who works to see these things happening. And I don't want to say this out of flattery or convenience. It is obviously a business value, but like there needs to be an inherent passion in the work we drive if we want some results. And this is it. So this is a moment that I want to recognize. So the surprise and the special guest. The special guest is Andrew here, and the surprise is that today Andrew launches Spaces Dashboard at spacesdashboard.com. Go take a look at it and see it for yourself. This is the result, the combination of the collaboration between what we did as Twitter and developers. This is the value of building with Twitter, not for Twitter. We do things together, and when we do things together, and we're ready to celebrate them and to launch them together. And this is what's happening today. So this is great, and this is amazing. And just want to recognize that you have built functionality that fully uses the Spaces API, including V2, and the Auth 2.0 authentication. You're using really the API to the fullest. If you go on spacesdashboard.com, you have the first view is the top live spaces, but then you can get the latest tab, and you can see what's alive and just started. You can filter by language, and that's just the first tab of many in the dashboard. I'm not making justice, obviously, to what people can see when they go to spacesdashboard.com, um, but I want to recognize that even just that is what you originally started to tell us you wanted to build.
Yep.
That's a new way to explore spaces with a different lens, a different algorithm, a different UI, even. And more importantly, you are putting this out there. So this means that you don't even have to be a Twitter user, let alone a Spaces user, to discover things that you might miss out. And that's a huge value for people. Like you're basically the Google or the YouTube of Spaces in a way, right?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And again, recognizing the importance of the hosts and also trying to make their life easier as well, because little things like when you start a space and you've got some speakers in the room, traditionally you'd have to type all those out yourself and expose it, whereas we've just got a click to tweet button where you go into your space, you click it, and it's updating based on the new speakers that are walking in and out of the Twitter space. One click, you're amplifying and hopefully driving more people back into the space. We had the issues where, again, I remember this so clearly when I said to you, sometimes, like anything, the space may crash and people have shared so much content into the nest, and then it became a painful process to do that. And I remember you saying to us, the crashing will stop. We will fix that. And we had that discovery, that conversation very early on when I said to you about the nested content is what I want. I mean, almost from day one when the nested content came through, I said, you don't understand the power. Or sorry, you did understand. I said, we totally see the value in the power of the nested content. So once that came out, we now have the ability where we actually save all of the nested content in every host's own personal page, their own episode of that space. So if anything does happen, they can go back and look through it. They no longer have to worry about if you missed a space, but you missed all the content shared in the nest. It's all placed into the dashboard. And then just a teaser of what's coming in the new versions is the fact that when somebody shares a piece of content that I've put on Twitter into a Twitter space and they start talking about it, can you imagine if we created the leaderboards on the nested content? What's the top video being shared in Twitter spaces in the Arabic world? What is the top journalist whose article that's been shared in Twitter spaces in Spain? What about if we were able to let you know as a user via a message, hey, just so you know, a space has just posted your tweet into the Twitter space and they're talking about it. Maybe you should go and have a listen. All of this stuff just comes from you making it available into the API. And it's just a constant innovation hub for us now. We've got so many different things. We've got all of the topics to bring out. We've been saving every topic that's been tagged on a Twitter space, and we're working out how we can best showcase that in regards to a new discovery mode now.
That's simply powerful. And like when I look at Spaces dashboard, before we touch even on the discovery, the new discovery aspect, uh, this is all information, like you said, coming from the Spaces API. And I myself, I couldn't realize, like I couldn't even envision something like this being so useful with the data we have. And granted, we always try to get the most um, relevant amounts of information that you could use there, and like seeing how that's laid out and how it's explained and how everything uh, gets to the point of getting not just the exploration of content, but the exploration of people. Like try to understand who's relevant in what specific space is fantastic. An example of this is something I just tweeted out as a reply to the main thread. I tweeted out the my Spaces dashboard page, which I'm going to pin to the nest. Um, so if you click on this link, you're still going to go to spacesdashboard.com, but it's my profile page, and you see who I am and my followers, obviously, and the number of spaces that have been captured by Spaces dashboard, the average number of participants, how many spaces did I run in the last 30 days, co-hosts, regular speakers, latest spaces, so the chronology of the history of the spaces. Um, let's break this down, Andrew, because all this information is incredibly helpful. So the first block is something about the creator. Who is this person? What does he do? So the profile bio. This is available obviously through the Twitter API. It's just the user lookup, and as followers, number of people I'm following, and the number of tweets. It gives you an indication of what is my reach. Am I verified? Am I somebody who works at a company that might bring some sort of information about some sort of products? And the answer to all this seems yes. And this is just like the first 30 seconds of the conversation. It's the business card. Hello, this is me. But what do I talk about really? And when you look at the co-hosts or regular speakers, you can clearly start to understand what am I all about. Regular speakers feature Twitter dev, Andrew, Jocelyn, Jamie, uh, Janika. Those are all superstars, developers, and there's a hint of Spaces creators. So I might be knowledgeable about the Spaces ecosystem as it pertains to developers. So even just by laying out that information that way in the profile page, you already are giving a lot of context about what this person is really all about when it comes to the content and the domain expertise, which is again yet another way to discover information in a way we never thought of.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting because, again, just by sharing it, I think it was actually Andy Piper or yourself who pointed us into the fact that what we should add under each of the speakers and co-hosts is the ability to directly follow that person with one click as well. So not only is it a discovery of spaces, it's a discovery of people who already exist on Twitter, and with a click you can then follow them and add them to your own Twitter profile, and you can actually start seeing what they do and get them in your own timeline. And we've even had people say that they've used this personal page to land new jobs because it proved to the potential employer how much they'd done on social audio. And with this one place, they could suddenly go through and start exploring all of the stuff that they've put together. And you'll notice as well on the latest spaces at the bottom, you have the ability to either listen back to the recording, or you can actually go and click to view the space. And when you click view space, it then gives you some participation data. It brings in any of the nested content for you. And here's the bit that becomes really interesting. Any one of these avatars or people, if you click on any one of those, so if you've ever been in a speaker into a Twitter space, you have a page on Twitter Spaces on our dashboard. So you can just keep clicking and exploring all these people. Now, you may not have hosted a space, but that's only a matter of time, because if you've had the insight and the courage to get up and talk in a space, we think it's only a matter of time before you actually start your own spaces. And now, of course, before not everybody could host their spaces, now everybody can. Everybody has the ability to start the conversations they want to hear, build the communities that they want to be a part of. And Dashboard hopefully becomes that place where you come to that assists you, helps everybody else discover you, and becomes a very valuable resource for everybody to use. And because of all of the innovation happening inside Twitter, the API is going to continue to grow. We are going to continue to develop. And as I said, I can clearly see that this will become a Twitch, a YouTube type experience where your dashboard page will become a valuable resource.
That is extremely well phrased, and one of the key values of building with the Spaces API, while having also the right vision right there. What the very important thing and value is that Twitter has 235 million daily active users. Some people think it's a good number. Some people think it's not a good number. It's too low. What I want to say is that that's not even a point, because if you present a space to people already on Twitter, they're already on Twitter, and they might have ways to be interested or not in the spaces. But because Spaces dashboard lives outside of Twitter, your audience is actually everybody, including people who don't have a Twitter account. And to that regard, your audience is potentially, your total addressable market is potentially billions of people, everybody with a Twitter connection, with an internet connection, and not a Twitter account. And that's where the Twitch of spaces or the YouTube of spaces analogy comes really handy, because there's a reason why you don't need a login to make a Google search. That's why you don't need a login to play your first YouTube videos, because those are the portal. Those are the gateway to the information you want to consume. And when you find content that's relevant to you, you may want to save it for later. You want to create an account. You want to get to it. The same dynamic happens to be true for spaces as well, with the exception that with the Explore tab, and before you built apps like this, you had the ability. Nobody had the ability to really discover things outside of the app, and so when this happened, you had this vision to not only bring a clone of the Explore functionality, but you gave a different view. And another thing to that makes that true in particular that I like and I would like to call out here as well is the let's see if I can find it, the Spaces Leaderboard, which gives you a combined view of the creator itself, and it's almost like a channel page on YouTube. It gives you when you go on the spaces on spacesdashboard.com/leaderboard or click on the link that I shared here on Spaces, you see this page with a lot of creators and a lot of numbers and a lot of profile pictures, which not only looks already great, but it gives you context, it gives you social proof, and it gives you the understanding of why this people is trending, why these people are on this leaderboard, and what for. So if I look today, the first person I see on the leaderboard, this person has 13,000 followers, but then you're also highlighting great information like the overall participants this person has gathered and reached out to throughout the number of spaces that were tracked by the dashboard, the number of speakers, the number of hosts, and the number of speaker followers. Can you touch a little bit more about speaker followers and what that means?
Sure. So again, it's another analytic element that you can either utilize to help you decide should you join this space. But we've had lots of hosts who have looked at this to actually start to understand the potential, again, the potential reach in regards to if we were to look at the followers and the speakers who you've invited up onto the space, and if they tweet out that they're in that room with you, and suddenly their potential followers have the option to discover your conversation and with one click join that as well. And we thought that was actually quite a fascinating number. And again, all of these we want to expose, and then you as the user or the brand can decide whether you think that is an appropriate number for you to utilize in anything that you discuss, talk, or create. What becomes really fascinating, of course, is that these dynamically change. So the leaderboard changes as new speakers and new participants walk in and out of the Twitter space. And having time lapses of those numbers change is actually quite fascinating, because I remember when we used to worry about, could you have 10,000 people in a room, or 20,000 or 30,000 or whatever the number may be. And then suddenly when I was looking at the leaderboard, I was thinking, my God, there's nothing to worry about. We're getting like if we click on the leaderboard at the moment, the top tab, the top space that happened on May the 9th in the last 7 days had 420,000 participants. And that's not the biggest. I mean, that's the thing. We have leaderboards for every day in every language available.
Wow.
Now, we haven't exposed that yet, but you will be able to, what we're calling space travel. You'll be able to go back in time on any day and see what was happening on that day in the social audio landscape of Twitter Spaces.
How do you come up with these things? We're just too focused on the details, basically. See that the creativity, we sometimes don't even see ourselves. Like, for example, while we focus on making sure that the spaces are always like the best possible quality or don't crash, we need to focus on this foundational element, and obviously we need to put all the new innovation in almost like in the background for a moment, and then that's why you can get all this creativity and work together. And this is exactly the great value of working together. The other thing is that you also mentioned all the analytical elements and the why this matters. The speaker followers and the overall participants. Like I'm looking at this. I'm still on a spacesdashboard.com/leaderboard. So if you are listening and you want to take a look for yourself, and you definitely should, just tap on the link you see on the tweet. There's this creator here. There's a speaker, this host with 8.7 million speaker followers, and like you mentioned, this is incredibly valuable information, both for the creator itself and for potential monetization. And I think we heard this from people like Jocelyn, who's been very active as a creator. And one of the needs that were must felt on this side of other things were about trying to understand how to monetize this. Like how do you become a creator on your own rights on live audio? And then once you do that, obviously you can create sponsorships or partnerships and start making a living out of it. We hope. And sponsors and partners want to understand how many people can you reach. And if you say I have 11,000 followers, you're not painting an accurate picture only. And you, with Spaces Dashboard, allow creators and hosts to really tell that story in the fullest of the picture. Like, my name is Daniele. I only have 2,000 followers, but I have a lot of speaker followers, which means that if I keep my audience engaged every week or every other day, and a percentage of them will retweet or tweet about what I talk about, then my reach expands, and I don't even have to have a huge number of followers. I just need to um, keep my audience engaged so that they can boost my own message. And so, in this case of this creator with 11,000 followers but 8.7 million speaker followers, that means that if this person keeps the audience engaged, only just 1% of that, um, it's going to be very powerful as um, as a speaker.
Yeah, and just on that one, you can click on his profile, and then I automatically again. This is where the discovery part happens. I see that he's had 4 spaces. The first one 3,700, second one 4,000, third one 8,000. This latest one 78,000, and I can click to listen to it. Just from the triggers of interest, investigative elements, whether you're a brand looking to find people to work with, whether you're actually looking for subject matter experts for your upcoming terrestrial TV show or for your new web series, and you're looking for experts who have a relationship with the community. Again, I've said it and I'll say it openly. This is more than a dashboard. This is a talent pool of social audio experts. The people who understand the medium. More and more big brands are going to be coming into this social audio space. They will need people who have the experience of running these Twitter spaces. And we all take it somewhat for granted because we're all used to it at the moment. But there's so many people, I've had this conversation, who have no idea what Twitter Spaces is. They have no idea that there's this social audio element to Twitter. We are so early into this. More and more brands are going to be coming in. More and more users are going to see the value of it. And having a place where you can present yourself without you having to do anything, because that's the key thing. We don't want you to do the hard work. We'll do it all for you. Or more importantly, Twitter will allow us to do it because they constantly add new things into the API. We, of course, will use our innovation on top of that. And then once we start skinning these pages, once we start skinning the environment to be contextually relevant, because brands will start to come in and say, hey, you know what? You seem to be running lots of spaces in this particular sector. Wow, all of these audiences are coming into a space and listening to people talk about this particular subject. How could I expose my brand to them in a completely new way? I'm not going to say anything else on that, but this is what's happening. These are the conversations we're starting to have with brands because they're realizing, and I said this to you before, I know a brand, a very big established brand, who wasn't actually going to continue with Twitter Spaces until another host, again, a conversation I had nothing to do with, but he said to me, he showed them his own Twitter dashboard page, Spaces dashboard page, and suddenly the brand looked at that and thought, oh my God, look at you're getting all of these audiences on a regular basis coming into a space to listen to you. Do you know how much we'd have to pay to get that level of engagement with that 2,000 users on a daily basis into a show for an hour? And you've got it here. You've proven to me that you've done it for the last 35 weeks. And that's when it becomes really, really powerful. And we almost forget how good we are as hosts because there's so many out there. When I show them that, they're like, oh my God, I didn't realize I ran so many spaces. Oh my God, I remember that one. And of course, now you're adding the ability for us to get the recordings. Of course, within the 30 days, it's no longer available. So we've built into the system so you can only have it showing up as an icon after the 30 days it's removed. But of course, there's lots of solutions coming in that regard, and we're excited to see what Twitter come up with that. Everything you do, we're ready.
Get ready.
Yeah, we're ready, and we're excited to where this can go to the future. As I say, once nested content comes in here, topics come in here, the space travel to go back in time, the ability to brands to actually Look into the future as well, of course, because that's a great thing about the API. We have a 14-day window. So it's like looking into the future of where you should potentially plan your space, or things you should avoid, time slots, or is there any vulnerabilities in what you're planning?
And when you look at all this, basically going back to what you said about connecting creators to sponsors, um, you're basically putting out there a powerful message on behalf of us, really. So that's why it's hard for people like me to get a thank you for the API, because what you're basically saying by building and maintaining Spaces dashboard is, hey sponsor, hey brand, look at all these numbers, look at all this reach you're not really leveraging. Like, it's all out there. And you're also making a service to all the creators, telling them uh, your 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 work is paying off. And that was the other felt need from creators that um, really put us in the direction of uh, giving us the ability to release metrics about the space, like speakers, participants, and number of listeners. And then, because it's a live API and returns real time data, you can almost have, like, every 10 seconds you can make the same request to the API, and you can almost plot a chart by the minute, in a way, to really understand how that space is trending, and understand, even give more meaningful, detailed understanding of what content resonates, or what time of day, or what happens when you tweet out something and you share it to the nest. So there's a lot that you're already unpacking, not just for the creator, but also for the spaces ecosystem as a whole. You're basically telling everybody, look, this is the sum of all the listeners and all the speakers and all the reach that a creator can get if they get to use spaces and they get to use it in a meaningful way. So
And
we're thinking, sorry, to wrap up the thought on that, you know, people believe that the API is not free, or should be, they should pay, or it's not affordable. The API is free. V2 is free. Um, this business API is completely free of charge. And I actually believe that there should be a world somewhere, somehow, where you shouldn't pay for an API. Maybe the API pays you back for the service you do to the platform. And who knows, that maybe the future and that dynamic happens on this platform specifically. So that's the food for thought that I wanted to just put out there. Sorry for interrupting, Andrew. I know
no,
we're also coming up at right at time, so I wanted to first of all say thank you, a huge thank you for all your work and support, and thank you to all the developers. I see Janika here, Jamie, um, and all the others. I see Chris and Nestor here as well, that were um, very beneficial in giving us the perspective of the Spanish-speaking audience. Hola, ¿qué tal? Y gracias. Um, and all the others to join all the spaces. And hopefully we're going to do more of this soon again, so we can start celebrating and looking back at more of those. But for now, Andrew, thank you so much. I'm a user of Spaces Dashboard now and ever, and I can't wait to just help you out with and help everybody in the community out with new innovation that can push Spaces even forward.
wow, thank you, and thank you for hosting this today. It really did mean a lot to launch it in a space with yourself, and I'm really excited about the future. And actually, looking at all the faces in here, we had the great opportunity to actually meet in real life last week in London, and it really is a community that we're building here. I look forward to when we have the Twitter Spaces real life convention, when we can all meet in person and share everything we're doing together.
I'd love to see that, and hopefully, soon, as we see more of this happening.
Absolutely.
thank you, and thank you, everybody. And we'll speak soon again. That's a promise. Bye.
Thanks, mate. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Spaces Dashboard, your VIP guide to live, upcoming, and recorded audio conversations on Twitter Spaces.